And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pumpkin Copter cast, the only video game show. So today I am joined by Vincent Patrick, who's here to say words about a little game he's working on in between everything else.
Definitely. Hello.
Hello. So we'll start with just a basic introduction of you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I am. I guess I'm just an artist. I make a lot of things. I like making things, and currently I'm working on a game.
Okay. And when did you first discover video games, like as a thing that exists?
As a thing, probably when I was a kid, I remember like playing Dig Dug on my dad's computer
Hmm.
way back when.
Yeah, and what would you say is your favorite game and or games growing up?
Growing up, it was a lot of different things. I think the ones that I really got attached to was the super weird stuff. So, like, if you ever heard of a game called Cubivore on the GameCube, that one was
No.
like a super hard one to find, but I played it and it wasn't like the most impressive game out there, but it was just so out there that I attached to it. And then maybe other games like Gotcha Force, which is also another kind of weird one. Just like a lot of games that had weird concepts.
Okay. And what would you say is your favorite game and or games now?
Nowadays, I'd say that list is even bigger, but the last game I played that I was like super impressed by was Near Automata. That one's
Hmm.
probably top tier on my list right now.
Okay. And okay. Now if this were at like if you had a booth at a convention like PAX, or I don't know, if this was around my neck of the woods, something smaller like Boston Fig Fest, and someone walked by and asked you like, "What is Dead Function?" What would like the sales pitch be that you would give them?
What I've been mostly, I guess, pitching it as is just kind of a classic RPG experience in a very stylized and fun package, I guess.
Okay, and like where like did the ideas for the game come from?
Um, I guess it came from a lot of places. I was already working on a couple of other games, I guess in the same kind of like in the same engine basically. And for this one, I was already making a game that was based on kind of like the same themes of like ghosts and stuff, but it was just a little too, I don't know, too complicated to try off like a first thing at the moment. So I wanted to break it down simpler and do something that anyone could play. And yeah, that's pretty much how it started.
Okay, and you mentioned that is an RPG type game. Is that going to be how the game is is it going to be an RPG all the way through, or will it like how it play differently in different parts of the game?
Yeah, so it's pretty much as simple RPG as simple RPG gets. There's nothing too complicated in the mechanics, and it's just turn-based in that way as well. I've mostly been just focusing on the aesthetic portions of it for the most part, so that it just looks and feels
Hmm.
like an experience of its own.
Okay, and so you mentioned it was just just like classic dependable like RPG formula for the gameplay was like when the game was still an idea in your head, was that like did you want it to make it an RPG from the very start of it, or would you say like while you started making it, it would be like, hey, this would be a cool thing if it was an RPG?
So the engine I mostly use is RPG Maker, just
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have coding experience myself. So a lot of my ideas I have to kind of base them around that limitation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's ways to work around it for someone like me who doesn't have the coding experience. But doing that just takes a lot of work, and I just want to try to finish something first. So that's pretty much what started out as an RPG, at least.
Okay. And are there any like RPGs that you've played past or presently that help give you an idea as to the type of RPG Dead Function would turn out to be?
I mean, it probably looks in the aesthetic itself, but Earthbound and like the Mother series in general definitely is a inspiration into that for
Hmm.
sure. Just in like the how it's more of like a cartoon than it is like a classic like fantasy or sci-fi thing. Um, yeah, I'd say that for sure. I was also looking at a lot of like old school like Dragon Quest and how they kind of set up those, where those were just extremely like simple and bare bones, but they still provided a really fun kind of experience to get into.
Hmm.
So I
And oh,
one.
sorry.
Okay.
And so I've noticed like it's a very. I'm looking at the screenshots you posted about it on your Twitters right now. It's a very spooky looking game. And so, like, did you always intend for it to be like, ghosts and zombies and in a graveyard? Was that always the idea?
I think I would say yes for the spooky part for sure. Picking the setting was the harder part because I wanted to pick something that could be very centralized, but also branching out. And so I ended up picking a cemetery just because it fits that role a lot easier. You can add a lot of different areas to a cemetery versus like a I don't know, a mansion in that case.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then I had just recently at the time watched. If you ever heard the anime Panty and Stocking, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they had a like zombie episode, and just the way that's stylized, it's still like I guess spooky, but it's just very fun to look at, and so I wanted to get vibes just like that too.
Okay. And as someone who doesn't really know anything about making games, is there like a part of Dead Function that you found like really challenging or something that gave you the most problems when you were plugging away at it?
Most challenging part. Um, I would say for me personally, the most challenging part is probably just like the nitty gritty and just making sure everything plays out how it should be. Like level A takes you to level B and all that stuff. Just doing that in order. Usually, what I end up doing is as I'm playtesting it, I realize that I accidentally skipped over certain parts and making things connect right. So it's just like, I guess the more mundane stuff is the hardest stuff for me.
Okay. And from like the time like you thought of like the initial ideas to the time when it'll be released, how long will the total development time have taken?
Um, I think got the idea sometime around like February. So let's see, maybe like 4 or 5 months range for the most part, and just working on that straight.
Okay. And when it is ready to be released out into the world, where will people be able to, check it out for themselves?
So currently, I have it a page for it on the itch.io. I pretty much that's I'm probably gonna put all my games, and this one's gonna be a free one. So if anyone wants to play it, they can just go download it from there.
Okay. And um, so you said you're releasing it on itch.io. Just again, I don't really know anything about any sort of aspect of game making or releasing. Did you decide to like put it on there just because you thought it would be like the easiest, or were there other decisions that led to that?
Um, I definitely like the platform itself. It's very friendly to indie games in general, and a lot of the games that I played indie wise have come from there as well. And I think the community itself is a little bit more approachable than like something like Steam, I guess. So that's kind of my choice in picking that.
Okay, and once Dead Function is out there and people have got it and downloaded it and played it, are there any other Like types of game. Are there any types of genres you'd be particularly interested in playing with?
Um, Genres. I'm sort of slowly, very slowly learning how to do like platforming games.
Mm-hmm.
And so that one, I'd love to jump into that and make something, but just because it's a little more complicated, it might be a second. But I do got a couple more narrative-based games in the same engine that I'm working on as well.
Okay. Um, yeah, and now we come to the final question, which everyone always understands perfectly, and there's never any sort of confusion on ever. So, Vincent Patrick, in your opinion, is video games?
Uh, I'll say yes. Video games is yes.
Okay. And, with that, we come to the conclusion of this particular episode. A short one, but a good one. And I would like to thank Vincent Patrick for joining me and, just entertaining my delusions of video game show having.
I appreciate being had on the show in the first place. Thank you.
Yeah, and so just if any of the -7 people who watch the show are interested, the game is called Dead Function. It will be released. Is there a definitive date or is it like,
I don't have a definitive date, but I'm gonna try and release it sometime next month for sure.
okay? And it'll be released on the itch.io. So yeah, just if you frequent that particular gaming site, keep your eyeballs on it for this particular game. And yeah, before I start plugging my things, is there anything else you want to plug?
If anyone's interested in finding out more about the game or my other artwork, you can find me on most social media under King Chameleon. And yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. And yeah, if there's anyone watching this, and if those watching this enjoyed it, you can like and subscribe on the YouTubes, and press the bell icon because everyone loves unnecessary extra steps. And if for some reason anyone out there wishes to give me a money, you can go to patreon.com/the Pumpkin Copter cast and give as much or as little as you want. And yes, this has been the Pumpkin Copter cast with today's co-pilot of Vincent Patrick, and we will see you all next time.
Yeah.